A 19-year-old Stanford dropout promised to revolutionize medicine with a single drop of blood. When the lie unraveled, patients discovered their test results were fiction. One scientist paid with his life. $9 billion. That's what investors valued a company that couldn't accurately test blood. When federal regulators finally looked inside the black box, they found a fraud that touched hundreds of thousands of lives. May 23, 2013. Ian Gibbons, Theranos' chief scientist, dies of acetaminophen overdose. He was scheduled to testify about the company's technology the next morning. His widow gets a call from Elizabeth Holmes. Elizabeth Holmes drops out of Stanford at 19 with her tuition money and a vision. She'll build a device that runs hundreds of tests from a single drop of blood. She calls it Edison, after the inventor. 2003, Palo Alto, the heart of Silicon Valley, where Stanford students become billionaires. Holmes incorporates real-time cures in a garage, following the mythology of Jobs and Hewlett-Packard. The revolution always starts here. Her first patent application reveals the original vision, a wearable patch that monitors blood and delivers medication. But Holmes pivots to something more ambitious. She'll eliminate the needle, the lab, the waiting. One device, all tests, instant results. The money pours in like water, $6 million from Tim Draper. Then Rupert Murdoch writes a check for $125 million. By 2014, Holmes has raised nearly $1 billion on a promise. She assembles a board of directors that reads like a State Department reunion. Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, James Mattis, William Perry, men who negotiated with superpowers now sit in her boardroom. None have medical degrees. George Shultz, Reagan's Secretary of State, becomes her champion. His credibility opens doors that money alone cannot. When Shultz speaks, Washington listens. His own grandson Tyler will soon learn what that influence costs. Kissinger looks at the young CEO across the boardroom table. What he sees isn't a college dropout playing with test tubes. He sees something else entirely, something that men like him find irresistible. September 2013, Walgreens announces a revolutionary partnership. Theranos wellness centers will offer blood tests in 40 Arizona stores. Real patients will now trust their health to Edison. The fiction becomes dangerous. The valuation climbs like a fever chart. $1 billion, $5 billion, $9 billion. Holmes owns 50%. On paper, she's worth $4.5 billion. Forbes names her the youngest self-made female billionaire in history. The media canonization begins. Fortune puts her on the cover. Time names her one of the 100 most influential people. Glamour, Forbes, Inc. magazine. Every profile mentions the black turtleneck. Every photo shows those unblinking eyes. She builds her image like a product. The voice drops an octave. The wardrobe becomes a uniform. She studies Steve Jobs' biography like scripture. In every photo, she positions herself as the future of medicine. But in a lab in Newark, California, the truth lives behind locked doors. The Edison device that promises to run 200 tests can barely manage 12. And those 12 are failing quality control. The scientists know. The executives know. The Edison is a Russian doll of deception. On the surface, a sleek beige box the size of a printer. Inside, a web of tubes and pumps that can't deliver what's promised. At its core, a simple truth. The technology doesn't exist. Ian Gibbons knows the truth better than anyone. The British biochemist joined in 2005 as chief scientist. He spent 8 years trying to make Holmes's promises match reality. The math doesn't work. The physics doesn't work. So who made the money? Let's follow the dead ledger. Venture capital flows from Draper Fisher to Theranos accounts. From there to equipment that doesn't work. But some money takes a different path entirely. Holmes maintains 50% equity through every funding round. Her shares can't be traded, can't be verified, exist only on paper. But paper is enough when Forbes is counting. 4.5 billion in theoretical wealth. By 2014, the scoreboard shows a stunning victory. 800 employees, 40 Walgreens locations, 9 billion valuation, one revolutionary technology. But that last number is about to change everything. Inside the lab they called Normandy, the truth was bleeding out. Behind locked doors, technicians diluted tiny blood samples and ran them on machines never meant for finger pricks. Ian Gibbons knew the science. Cambridge trained, 30 patents to his name. He'd spent his life making molecules dance. At Theranos, he watched them fail. Gibbons documented everything. Quality control failures, impossible accuracy claims, tests that couldn't meet basic FDA thresholds. His lab notebooks became a paper trail of deception. When Gibbons raised concerns, Holmes and Balwani pushed him aside, demoted him, isolated him. The man who understood the science became the enemy of the story. May 23, 2013, a subpoena arrives. Gibbons must testify about Theranos patents in court. That night, he takes an overdose of acetaminophen. Holmes called Gibbons's widow within hours, not to offer condolences, not to express sorrow. She wanted his lab notebooks, the work that proved her lies. Tyler Schultz arrived at Theranos with hope. Stanford biochemistry degree, famous grandfather, ready to change the world. What he found was a house of lies. Tyler discovered the lab's secret. Quality control tests routinely failed. Proficiency samples sent by regulators were run on commercial machines, not the Edison. He documented everything. Real patients were getting these results. HIV tests, cancer markers, medication dosages. Lives hung in the balance of a machine that couldn't deliver accurate numbers. While Tyler fought to fix the lab, his grandfather defended Holmes on television. George Schultz, who'd negotiated with Soviet leaders, couldn't see through a Stanford dropout's lies. So who made the money? Let's follow the dead ledger. While patients got false results and scientists died, someone was getting very, very rich. $945 million flowed into Theranos, from Walgreens, from Safeway, from billionaire families who believed the impossible. The money trail tells its own story. Erica Chung saw it all from inside the lab. 22 years old, fresh from Berkeley, she watched patient samples get diluted beyond recognition. She started taking notes. When Tyler tried to warn his grandfather about the fraud, George Schultz made a choice. He invited Theranos lawyers to the meeting. His own grandson faced legal threats. David Boies didn't just defend Theranos, he hunted whistleblowers. Private investigators followed former employees. Threatening letters arrived at their homes. This wasn't legal defense, this was intimidation. The scales were rigged. On one side, 2 young employees with the truth. On the other, $9 billion and the most powerful law firm in America. Patients were the real victims. False HIV positives, incorrect medication dosages, cancer markers that showed all clear when tumors were growing. The human cost was mounting. By 2014, Theranos was processing thousands of patient tests daily. Most were secretly run on modified Siemens machines. The FDA had never approved this. Nobody knew. Holmes had an answer for everything. The secrecy was to protect trade secrets. The lab problems were growing pains. The whistleblowers were disgruntled employees. Every lie covered another. Then John Carreyrou got a tip. The Wall Street Journal's investigative reporter had exposed corporate fraud before. He started making calls. The empire began to shake. October 15, 2015, the Wall Street Journal headline drops. Holmes has hours to save her empire. She chooses to fight. It's the beginning of the end. October 15, 2015. The Wall Street Journal breaks the story. John Carriero's investigation exposes the truth. Theranos' revolutionary blood tests don't actually work as advertised. Within hours, Holmes launches a media counter-offensive. She appears on CNBC, on Mad Money, calling the reporting false. The board rallies behind her, dismissing the whistleblowers as disgruntled employees. David Boies deploys his firm's full arsenal against the Journal, threatening letters, promises of lawsuits, private investigators following sources. The lawyer who fought Microsoft now fights for a lie. January 25, 2016. Federal inspectors arrive at Theranos' Newark laboratory. What they find poses, quote, immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. The house of cards begins to collapse. Theranos voids 2 years of blood test results. Every Edison result from 2014 and 15 thrown out. Patients who made medical decisions based on false data must be contacted. The $9 billion valuation evaporates overnight. Walgreens terminates the partnership, closing all 40 wellness centers. Safeway writes off $350 million in store renovations. The money vanishes. The lawsuits arrive in waves. Patients who received false HIV results, false cancer markers, wrong medication dosages. Walgreens sues for $140 million. Partner fund management wants their money back. March 14, 2018. The SEC charges Holmes with massive fraud. She pays a $500,000 fine, loses voting control, and is barred from serving as an officer for 10 years. June 15, 2018. A federal grand jury returns the indictment. Elizabeth Holmes and Ramesh Balwani face 9 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of conspiracy. 20 years in prison each. January 3, 2022. After 7 days of deliberation, the jury returns. Elizabeth Holmes, guilty on 4 of 11 counts. The wire fraud against investors stands. The patient fraud charges are dropped. July 7, 2022. Ramesh Balwani's verdict arrives. Guilty on all 12 counts, including the patient fraud charges Holmes escaped. The enforcer pays a higher price than the founder. November 18, 2022. Judge Edward Davila delivers the sentence. Elizabeth Holmes, 11 years and 3 months in federal prison. The black turtleneck will be traded for prison khaki. The final accounting arrives. $945 million in investor losses. 800 employees without jobs, and a number that can't be quantified. Patients who made life decisions based on lies. The board members who enabled the fraud face no charges. Kissinger, Mattis, Perry, their reputations intact. George Shultz dies without ever apologizing to his grandson. Power protects power. May 30, 2023. Elizabeth Holmes boards a plane from California to Texas. Destination: Federal Prison Camp Bryan. Expected release: December 29, 2032. Holmes serves 11 years in federal prison. Balwani gets 12 years and 11 months. The board members face no consequences, keeping their wealth and reputations intact. Tyler Schultz spent $500,000 defending the truth. George Shultz died without apologizing to his grandson. The scales of justice tilt toward those who can afford them. Holmes told investors she would change the world. She did. Now every Silicon Valley pitch deck gets scrutinized for the next Theranos. The pattern persists. The Edison machine sits in an FBI evidence locker. The patents expire worthless. But somewhere another founder is promising to revolutionize healthcare with a box that doesn't work yet.